Hello, class. Elena here. I just want to begin by saying there's going to be a little bit of background noise. So, to begin this presentation, I'll be arguing on behalf of the defense in this case involving Agent Stingley and Troller. This case raises serious Fourth Amendment concerns, specifically that protects against unreasonable search and seizures. The actions of these agents were unconstitutional from the moment they made assumption to the moment they entered the home without a warrant. So my first point is reasonable suspicion. The agents did not have reasonable suspicion to believe that the occupants involved involved in alien smuggling. They were on their lunch break, not conducting an investigation, and their assumptions were based purely on observation and profiling. So they did profile the gentleman that walked out of the van, assuming because it was Baja California plates that they were involved in alien smuggling. That's not correct. They saw men leaving the van and instantly jumped to criminal conclusions. That's not probable cause or reasonable suspicion under Terry versus Ohio. So their counter argument is that the prosecution might say that the van looked suspicious or was in a known area for smuggling. That isn't probable cause. Suspicion alone isn't enough. Behavior that looks unusual doesn't justify assuming criminal activity. This is the whole reason the Fourth Amendment exists to begin with, to protect against lunch-based policy. So my second point is the warrantless entry. The entry into the home was completely illegal. They had no warrant, no consent, and no exigent circumstances. Hearing a baby cry, and let's say the voice is speaking in Spanish, does not justify breaking into a home. They should have called for backup, that is my argument, or requested a warrant. Under Kentucky versus Hollis, exigent circumstances require a real and immediate threat to life or evidence destruction, not just a noise or a feeling. In this case, the agents acted recklessly and ignored clear Fourth Amendment boundaries. Then they needed to verify that there was actual danger. You can't assume an emergency just because you hear the baby crying. Again, the law demands objective reasonableness, not impulse reactions. My third point is continued search. Once inside, agent trollers continued to search the house, and it was also unlawful. Mr. Hernandez clearly stated that the belongings were his, yet they went to the girlfriend for consent. This is manipulative and invalidates consent altogether. Based on the United States versus Brown, case supports that a search is unlawful when agents ignore the rightful owner's assertion of privacy. The prosecution may argue that the consent was implied. Implied consent doesn't exist when the property owner explicitly claims ownership. They bypassed him to get an answer they wanted. That's coercive and unconstitutional. My fourth point is the pat down. So this is a little bit tricky because the agents did have their guns drawn and they could have maybe assumed that Mr. Hernandez had a weapon on him, but for their protection, they needed to do the pat down. The pat down itself could be seen as lawful, but only if it was limited to officer safety. Again, if it was used as a pretext to search, it becomes unlawful under Terry. They weren't detaining him due to the valid arrest and immediate threat, so even the steps border on violation. Let's see. So they could argue that the agents had the right to ensure the safety, which is what I said. The response to the safety checks are allowed. However, this can't turn into a full-blown search. Once it crosses that line, it's no longer about safety. It's about fishing for evidence, which is what some police do a lot. So my fifth point is the knapsack search. The search of the knapsack that contained marijuana was unconstitutional. They had no warrant, and none of the exceptions applied. No consent, no plain view, no exigent circumstances, which is like what we made points about what police can or cannot do, or law enforcement can or cannot do. The bag, Mr. Hernandez, it was his property. Again, and under United States versus Brown, personal belongings can't be searched without probable cause or consent. The agents violated the Fourth Amendment core principle, a person's right to privacy in their own home and property. Now, I don't remember reading in the case whether or not the house belonged to Mr. Hernandez, so it could be a little tricky. There wasn't anything stating that he was a homeowner. I wonder if that could be like a counter argument. They may argue plain view or probable cause, but that's not. There was no reason to search his belongings without his consent. Plain view only applies when officers are lawfully present. Since their entry was unlawful, everything found after becomes fruit of a poisonous tree, which means that it gets tossed out. They can't use it. So, concluding every steps the agents took, from profiling to entering the home and searching belongings, it all violates the Fourth Amendment. They ignored due process. They slapped judicial oversight and acted on impulse rather than following the law. If we allow this kind of behavior, or it sets a dangerous precedent that excuses unlawful entry based on assumption, not facts. Therefore, the evidence obtained must be suppressed, and the actions of the agents Stingley and Troller are deemed unconstitutional. I hope that this was informative and you guys enjoy this video. Thank you.